Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Cinematic Realms. I'm your host, John Webster, and with me at long last is Bernie.
Hey, guys.
Hey, we're talking about the movie In Bruges today, which is actually probably my favorite movie of the year it came out, 2008. It didn't get that much awards attention, although it was nominated at the Golden Globes, and I'm pretty sure Colin Farrell won Best Actor for
He
it.
did win. And what's his name? The other guy, too. Brendan Gleeson. He also was nominated in the same category. But I think it was nominated for screenplay for Academy Award, too.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
And they're good. Well deserved. Although, as we were just talking about, the screenplay contains some stuff that maybe wouldn't... they might not be able to get away with today.
Not PC, yeah. But that's part of the art of the film. That's the dark humor in it, and you got to kind of see past it. That's it's just character development. That's the way they are. They're crooked people, but they wrestle with this, doing the right thing and morality throughout the movie. So it's like everything contradicts itself. That's what makes it so good,
Yeah, I was thinking throughout the film, because on the one hand there was a lot of stuff where I was like, should I find this as funny as I did back at the time? Because maybe I was a bit less aware of some things that maybe you shouldn't joke about, but it's the delivery. A lot of times you can't help but laugh your ass off at Colin Farrell. He says some really wrong stuff, but there's just something endearing at the same time.
Exactly.
About it. So just starting off, I'm positive that especially everybody in the chat knows who you are, Bernie, but do you just want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do in the fandom?
Yeah, I don't know. I bring snark to the fandom. I'm kind of like A Song of Ice and Fire out at the moment. I'm trying to do a reread and get back into it because sometimes you get burnt out. But that's where we all met, in the A Song of Ice and Fire fandom. And I do a podcast with San Rixian called Illumination. We have 2 episodes out right now on Podbean. And other than that, I'm just, hanging out, having fun with some friends online. That's about it.
And guys, I have, as well as posting Bernie's Twitter, I also posted the Twitter for Illumination. So do go ahead and check that out. If you haven't already, I'm sure you have.
Yeah, we review different things, like whatever we feel like reviewing, something we watched and we both liked, and boom, we just, review it. We have like stuff on the back burner now, but whatever we feel like. You never know what it might be.
Yeah. So, it's just sort of starting off. What was delightful for me about this movie back when it came out was that it was such a sort of pleasant surprise, because it really wasn't something on my radar. Because I remember especially the trailer for the film kind of doesn't really nail the vibe of the movie. I think they were trying to sell it as this really sort of wacky comedy type thing, but there's a lot more heart to the film than I think the marketing really got across. It's really funny, but it has a somber tone to it as well, and you really feel for these characters. It's really emotional.
Yeah, it definitely facilitates between being funny, being a thriller, a drama. It's everything. There's a little bit of everything in there, and it's heartfelt at times, and it'll just turn you like that. Boom! All of a sudden, like these scenes will just take you. The acting is incredible. So normally with a comedy, sometimes I'll get taken out because I'll notice, oh, that's acting. But you just watch this, and the acting is impeccable all the way through, and they really sell these fucked up characters,
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I never saw the trailer. I don't know where I saw it first. I think it just ended up on HBO or something at one point in time, and I ended up watching it. And I was like, oh my God, how come I did not know about this movie? Like, a lot of people don't know about it, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's slept on.
Yeah, it's like I said, it was my favorite movie in the year it came out, and which it was a nice contrast towards against the stuff that I was mostly watching, because 2008 especially was like a very comic book movie heavy year, because you had Iron Man, you had The Dark Knight, and at the time I was very much the type of person who was talking up The Dark Knight and how much I loved it. But then out of nowhere comes this film, and I just fell so in love with it that it definitely would have been, it wasn't nominated for Best Picture, but it should have been, in my opinion. I think it's that good. But yeah, I just love it because the movie starts off, like I said, with this somber tone where you've got Colin Farrell voicing over, sort of setting up, the situation where we don't find out all the details yet, but it's kind of vague, where it says, after I killed him, I threw the river in the Thames, and then the instruction, and then the instructions came through.
You forgot the best part. He washed his hands in a Burger King bathroom.
Yeah, you're right.
So that's where you're like, wait. That's, they introduce it right away. Like, okay, we're in for a ride. Yeah.
And yeah, we're not monetized, so I'll just go ahead and go all out with this, where I'll be like, it's the instructions came through, get the fuck out of London, you dumb fucks.
Yeah.
Get to Bruges. I didn't even know where Bruges effing was. It's in Belgium.
And he hates it. His disdain. Well, that's the part that the whole movie is about. This town. That's one of the main characters, and he is just miserable there. He's like, oh, I never liked history. It's just a bunch of shit that already happened, or whatever stuff that already. He's very childlike. There's all these child figures, and there's a lot of repetition in this movie, which normally would annoy you. Like, even in their dialogue, in scenes, in imagery. Even in the music, I'm sure you're going to talk about that. And there's just a lot of repetition, and somehow it works. And so there's all these child victims kind of in the movie, getting shot accidentally, and then it's what do I do? How do I deal with this? But also, Colin's character is kind of Ray is kind of childlike himself, He has this innocence about him somehow, even though he's so fucked up. And, they managed to offend every single person on the planet, I'm pretty sure. Like, they got everybody in. So when he says, they didn't leave anyone out, it's just somehow he's endearing,
Yeah, I was thinking about this today as I watched the movie, because you kind of... you look for characters that you identify with, and I would very naturally say that I'm probably a Ken, just in terms of I'd be the one appreciating the history and the architecture of Bruges. Probably, I think a lot of people would guess that about me. And despite the fact that I am very clearly not Ray's sort of personality type, where I think, he doesn't care really about art or, history and all that stuff. But yet there's something about him. I think it's sympathetic because you see the sort of his inner turmoil and trauma that he's going through, and the fact that he does feel almost childlike, as you say, that it makes him very sympathetic. As much as any of these characters are sympathetic because they're hitmen. But yeah, it's just something about him that easily kind of wins you over. Because even when you think he's being kind of annoying in how he's, because you don't know his circumstances right off the bat. So he's just kind of being this stick in the mud, but then you peel back the layers as the film goes on, and you see that he's dealing with having committed this horrible act. And it's just, I mean, I guess I'll go right into it. The scenes later on in the film where he's just dealing with that and broken up over it, it's just so emotional. I love seeing Colin Farrell's raw performance in this film. And like later in the film, the scene after when Ken's been ordered to take him out, but then he finds him about to do the deed himself, and just the way Colin Farrell just breaks apart. It's just a very open, emotional performance, and I don't think you get to see that a lot, especially from an actor like Colin Farrell, who is often called upon to be sort of the tough guy type of role, and it's so emotionally open to the point that at first it almost feels like it's played for laughs at first when he starts breaking down and crying, because you're not used to seeing somebody that emotional, but then you're almost ashamed of yourself for feeling that way, because as he starts to break down, it's just so, I keep using the word raw, but it is emotionally raw, and it's a beautiful performance. I'm really glad he got some award recognition for it.
Well, there's the confliction there in that scene, even is like, you think about the situation, like, okay, he needs to die and Ken needs to do it, and he's going to do it for himself anyway, and Ken won't have to do it, but he stops it. And then, so that's like kind of like funny in itself, but then he's upset and it's a serious situation. So it's just amazing how they put it together. And these hitmen, normally hitmen are like really cool guys, like Tarantino hitmen. These guys never try to be cool. They're just like Laurel and Hardy almost. I don't know. But it's something else, man. Also, there's a lot of, I see, like, I was raised Catholic, now atheist, but I see a lot of Catholic guilt in this movie too, as well, and obviously all the art and the buildings and everything. So it kind of brought back memories for me too. And being, they're Irish, so.
Well, they do have also that wonderful scene where they're going through and looking at all the paintings and stuff, and they're actually talking about their beliefs of what might come after death, and how do they reconcile that with what they've done in their lives. And Ken talks about, he tries to be a good person, and that he tries to do good things for people. The example he uses is if he sees, a woman carrying her groceries, he'll hold the door open for things of that nature, but he has to reconcile that with the fact that he's also killed people. And
they have weird, like, loopholes in their morals. It's the whole movie about morality. But you mentioned that art, when they go into the museum, and the movie, the painting, the triptych by Bosch, Hermanius Bosch, the Last Judgment. I said the first name wrong. I'll just say Bosch. The Last Judgment is also repeated throughout the film. Like, it's an underlying, like, theme. And even when he's dying, or what maybe dying at the end, all the characters in that dream in the movie were from the painting. So it's just the way it's tied together sometimes is just amazing. But that Bosch painting is also awesome. Bosch is awesome.
Yeah, and I'm going to just throw up an image real quick of our characters. This is actually the scene we were talking about a few minutes ago when Ken is about to, about to kill Ray, and while he's on the verge of killing himself, or attempting to kill himself. And this is, this comes about because Ken's been ordered to do this, but the second that he sees that Ray is about to do this to himself, immediately he's concerned. He's like, "Don't do it!" And it is funny because then you have Ray going, "Oh, you were about to kill me." He's like, "No, I wasn't."
Yeah, they have these great. I mean, it's all kind of poetry, like the way when Irish people speak the brogue, it just is kind of sounds like poetry, and when they say it and their delivery, and they can just. Even though they're talking about like fucked up shit and they're there goes my but it's just hysterical, the timing, it's just like I said, it's poetry, a musical, their language and how they just play it off of each other. The chemistry between the two of them is really, really good.
Oh, hi Stephen, I know you can't stay. Thank you for coming by.
Hi Stephen.
Yeah. And you say that the film's sort of opening, narration by Colin Farrell kind of sets the tone for this offbeat, but even more so with what follows as we fade up on the two characters. Well, first it's just it's a black screen and we hear the two of them going back and forth, and I think it's absolutely hilarious. Where Colin Farrell is saying, and Bruges is I can't remember the exact words. Bruges is going to be Bruges is a shithole. Ken's like, Bruges is not a shithole. Can we reserve judgment on Bruges until we've seen the fucking place?
Yeah.
I know it's going to be a shithole.
Yeah,
and it fades up on the two of them walking through and just looking at everything. And Ken is obviously very impressed, and then he walks away, and Ray says, "Shithole."
Yeah, no, I mean, Ray is every teenage, 12-year-old, kid going on vacation with their parents, and the parents want to go do like. I remember my dad took me to like Fort Ticonderoga in upstate New York. I was like, what the, and now I think about it, I wish I could go. I want to go back. I haven't been back since, but I just freaking hate it. This is so boring, and Ray is the same way. He's just this kid that's just, he needs all the flash and glamour and fucked upness, seeing a dwarf or a little person. Even then, now that the terminology has changed since then on what the PC thinks. He's told in the film that, and dear God, I really hope I don't get in trouble. We're not trying to offend anyone.
I'm gonna be selective in my quotations, but even still, I want to stress that I'm no offense intended, but he is told in the course of the film when he references a character as a midget, and then he's told by somebody he doesn't like to be called that. He prefers dwarf. And then his response to that, of course, is, see, this is exactly what I mean, being called a midget when you want to be called a dwarf. Of course you want to kill yourself. And it's like, it's so wrong.
Everything, yeah. He says when he walks in, when they're walking into Bruges again, since we're on this part, he says, and I'm going to say this word too, and it's the worst word anyone could say in the world to me, because it's so offensive. Everyone has their thing, and he says, I would like Bruges, but I didn't grow up on a farm and I'm not R-worded. And I won't even say the word because my son has autism. So I'm like, and so does Colin Farrell's son or daughter. I know he's on the spectrum. So for him to have to say that, you know what I mean? That must've killed him, but he did it for the role. And, but I still could laugh at it. And I grew up on a farm too. It's like that whole sentence right there should have just made me turn this movie off, oh my God. But somehow you're just drawn in. It sells it. It's kind of like Taika Waititi playing, I hate to say this name too, but Hitler, he gets away with it. You know what I mean? Somehow. And some people don't agree with that, and that's fine. And it's not, that's a whole nother topic. I think it worked, so that's my opinion, but not trying to offend anyone. We're going to be doing that all day, not trying to offend.
Yeah, it's. I was watching the movie today. I'm thinking, God, how on earth are we going to do this? Because there's so many things that are wrong that they only get away with in the film, and they probably wouldn't be able to get away with it today, but they did at the time because of the way it's played by the actors. And that line that you're referencing, I definitely won't say that word, but it's the way he sort of says it, where he says, Ken, I grew up in Dublin. I love Dublin. If I'd grown up on a farm and was R-worded, Bruges might impress me, but I didn't, so it doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's just, his delivery is absolutely hilarious. And there's another moment, which there's a lot that I'm going to cut out of the line, where this is after he's been told to refer to one of the characters as a dwarf. So he's been corrected in that way by the female character in the film, who's played by Chloe. The character's name is Chloe, and
Clementine Posey is her name.
And she was actually in the 4th Harry Potter film.
Yes.
Well,
we had Voldemort, we had Mad Eye Moody, and we have Fleur. Is her name Fleur Delacour? And that's her name. She was in a couple of the movies.
Yeah, leave. I know this is not going to work out well. So there's a both horrible and hilarious line the next morning when he's having breakfast with Ken, where they're talking about going out to tour some of Bruges again, and Ken says, "We shall try to strike a balance between culture and fun," and Ray responds with, "Somehow I think the balance shall tip in the favor of culture, like I'm not going to say it, opposite a dwarf." And so he's actually trying to be better by saying dwarf, not even thinking about what he just said prior to that, which I'm not going to say.
Yeah.
It's hilarious because he thinks he's being better in that moment, and he's just said something really really bad and inappropriate.
He's like kind of the simpleton, idiot, but he's calling everybody else that, but it's truly him, because of his views, his world views, very messed up.
But so the film is filled with a lot of inappropriate things that are somehow still hilarious in context, but I do not feel comfortable necessarily repeating all of them on the stream. But
just watch it. If you haven't watched it, just watch it. You'll see. Somehow they sell it. It still works. I mean, it hasn't been banned yet. It's playing on HBO right now. So.
So we do find out as the film progresses, and we actually see it in flashback, is that Colin Farrell's character was sent to do a job where he was meant to kill this priest for reasons that we don't really know, but in the course of doing so, he actually ends up accidentally killing a small boy. And so that's why they've been sent to Bruges, in what initially seems to be, for reasons of hiding out, but their employer, played by the wonderful Ralph Fiennes, is planning to have
Ralph. Isn't it Ralph?
It's pronounced Ralph.
Is it Ralph? Really? Yeah. I did not know that. You learn something new every day. Wow.
And so he wants Ken to kill Ray, but the reason they're in Bruges is because he wants Ray to have one, sort of happy memory before he goes.
Yeah.
But of course, Ray hates Bruges, so it's like the worst possible thing. There's a moment later on after that scene we talked about earlier, where Ray is about to kill himself and Ken's about to kill him, but that doesn't happen. And Ken says, this was all just to give you one happy memory before you die.
Yeah.
And Ray goes, in Bruges. He's like, the Bahamas, maybe? Yeah,
that was a pretty good impersonation. So Ralph Fiennes' character is also just, he has these weird, he has these moralities and these weird like rules, his own rules, so, and his delivery of the way he delivers a line is just amazing. He's so quick, and the way it comes out, it's just boom, 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 and you follow him, even though he speaks at a mile a minute, like boom, 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 boom.
What's so brilliant about his performance in this movie is that he somehow, like when he speaks, he almost seems like he's a completely different actor. There's just something that I'm thinking, especially about the scene where him and Ken are sitting down at the table and talking. There's something about what he's doing with his mouth and his teeth as he talks. That he almost, there's a moment where I'm like, that doesn't even look like Ralph Fiennes. He does a really good job at creating this character who is threatening but also absurd.
Yeah, he's like this East End gangster, working class guy, and then, oh my God, well, I have like a million things we just talked about, but I want to go back.
Yeah.
Because when they kill Mance Radar, what's it? Kieran is his name. Right?
Yeah, Kieran Hines. Yeah.
Kieran Hines. There's also in that museum shot, there's a picture, a painting done by Gerard David, and it's called The Judgment of Cambria, what's it called? Cambyses, and it's the flaying. It's like the phrase. The Boltons. They're flaying the man, and it's a judge that was caught taking bribes. So I kind of feel like that was like the priest, like he must have been taking bribes or something like that. Like it's kind of like, kind of like symbolizes that. But then Ralph says, Jesus, what were we talking about right after that? Rafe. I'm gonna get it. He's this guy that has all these rules that he follows, his own set of rules, and they're messed up. And I think that this role was probably one of the most twisted characters that he's played ever. You know what I mean? And he nailed it. Of course. And he curses. That telegram was hysterical. All the F-bombs in it. Fuck this, fuck that, fucking you better be there. And he just shoots it out, he did an amazing job. He should have been nominated for something.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like this film is severely underrated, just through and through, because I think not enough people know about it, and the film didn't get enough recognition, especially when it came out. But yeah, his message that he leaves for Ken is like, I don't have it written out, and I don't even know if I could get through the whole thing, because it is. They had part of that message in the trailer for the film, and they basically it's like gaps all throughout. They just cut out all the F words.
Oh my gosh.
That's great.
And there's also, when the altar boy, or choir boy, or whoever the little boy was that Ray shot accidentally, has a list of sins in his hands, and it was not good at math, moody, depressed, or something like that. And all three things are like Ray, because he's not good at math, because he, was supposed to kill one person and he killed two. So again, there's all these children. And then when they made fun of your fucking children, or what did he call his kids? He said,
yeah, I'm not saying it.
Okay, you retract that about my kids. You retract that. They went off back and forth.
It's your.
Was it a C word?
Yeah, it's. Let's be honest. You're a C word. You've always been a C word, The only thing that's going to change is you're going to become even more of a C word, make some more C word kids. And then he comes back with, what do my kids have to do with this? You retract that bit about my C word fucking kids. And then he says, I retract that bit about your C word fucking kids.
Sometimes the dialogue between the three characters, the three hitmen characters, like, and there's somebody that's like out of the loop, like watching them, and they just like, what? You guys are crazy, because they just go from one extreme to the next, boom, 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 again with all these odd principles that they have. You can do this, but you can't do that. And it's just so well put together. The script, the dialogue in the script is just amazing. Even though it's very offensive, but it's still amazing.
Yeah. Harry, played by Ralph Fiennes. Yeah, it's weird. He's got this weird, like, strict moral code where he's this vicious killer, but he draws the line at children. And so the fact that Ray has killed a kid, he has to go. And so much to the point that when he thinks he's killed a kid at the end of the film, he immediately, sticks the gun in his mouth and pulls the trigger.
But even then, Ray is trying to stop him. Like, no, he's trying to tell him that he's a little person, and it didn't work. So they all have this weird code to go by. But Harry is weirdly sentimental too. He's a cold-blooded killer, but sentimental. It's like, again, a walking contradiction,
Yeah, he's swayed by Ken's words, when he sort of lets him know, what their friendship has meant and all this. And then Harry responds with, well, I can't effing kill you now that you've said all that stuff, kind of.
Yeah.
It's weird sentimentality for such a cold-blooded murderer.
What is it called? The Belfry? It's called a Belfry. It's not a I guess it's a tower, but it's a Belfry. That tower is, oh my gosh, with the Americans that were, that was so. And he was fighting the American. He was just dodging around the American. He had a New York Yankees hat on. I'm like, God damn it. But yeah, that scene was just.
Although I did catch what I found was pretty hilarious on this viewing was those Americans clearly not played by American actors.
I didn't pay. They sounded like Midwest to me a little bit more than well, I don't know. They supposed to be from New York, but
because I think it's the first thing that the male actor says that doesn't quite sound American, and then it's just certain turns of phrases that they use that are kind of not as American, and then it's the way that the woman kind of, it's a great delivery, but it strikes me as an odd delivery when she says "F you, mother effer," and but yeah, I think they're actually European actors.
Probably, I would imagine.
Yeah, but it's a hilarious scene, just wrong.
Yeah. Oh God. You're just a really rude man, really, really rude, because they're just, in their minds, they're trying to help them out. Like, no, don't go up there. It's not going to work out for you. And then we find out, like, in passing, like later on, the guy had a heart attack up on the top of the, if you don't understand these, this family was overweight, I guess, in terms of, so they're going on about that, how it would be not healthy for him to climb the stairs and whatever. But
let's just say that Ray is not tactful in the way that he communicates this.
Yeah.
And Ken actually comes down afterwards and tries to very politely, urge them, but they, get mad at him because,
yeah.
And then the way that Ray just kind of shrugged, like,
I don't know. Like, they were supposed to keep a low profile. He's like, I didn't do anything. Like, again, he's playing this kid, like Ray's kid, like, what? And we should say that this was his first job, and Ray brought him on, and he botched the first job. So that is like, So he's just like this innocent. He tries to play innocent kid, even when he's trying to tell him like to get out of the hotel room, like let's go sightseeing, let's go. He really wants to go to the pub, but he's
because I bet all the old, I bet all the old buildings look even better all lit up at night.
He used to, and even that acting is so he just plays it so well. I mean, I really never really liked Colin Farrell until this movie, and I just, he earned my respect, and because he's so good at his craft. I had no idea. I think before this, I remember he had some sex tape come out. That was probably the first thing I watched.
He had a number of not so great years just because of his unfortunate miscasting in the Oliver Stone film Alexander, which was a train wreck of a movie, and unfortunately I think it didn't do great things for his career, but I think that he's absolutely phenomenal in this, and I'd say if there was a movie that made me a fan of his, it was definitely this one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I kind of just felt like he was a fuck boy, and I was like, but this is just that really, he blew me away. Definitely blew me away.
And it's funny, what you were saying about he's very much sort of a child in this, and the way that, he's sort of being, he acts like the kid being dragged around. Ken actually says that, when they're out and about and they're in one of the churches, he says, I thought we agreed that today we would do what I want to do. And Ray says, we are doing what you want to do. And he says, and I would do them without having you throw a fucking Moody. and it is very much like that kid who's being dragged around to all the stores that he doesn't want to go to with his parents,
Yeah. Well, Bruges symbolizes purgatory for Ray, and so does that Bosch triptych. That's what that's all about. So he's in Bruges as his purgatory, and he's kind of they're judging him. They're going to figure out what's going to happen with Ray. What are we going to do? So and how he acts and what he's doing is all being looked at, I feel like, while you're watching this film. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? And that's the whole theme of the movie is pretty much purgatory,
yeah.
Even Ray, I mean, I don't know if we want to go into the ending, but what does he say? He says, I think I wrote it down, but the way I really hoped I wouldn't die. So he's speaking from the afterlife or from the future, because he's using hoped and then wouldn't, so we really don't know what happened to him. It's hard to say.
I think I've probably gone back and forth a number of times watching this movie, whether I think that he dies or survives. What do you think?
I think he dies. I think he spends his hell in Bruges. I think he's stuck in Bruges for life. That's it. It's his worst nightmare, and I think that's how I feel about it. But
I guess most of the time I tend to land on him surviving. Maybe I'm just more optimistic, but I like the idea that he gets to attempt to atone for what he's done. But maybe that's just my sort of outlook on life. But I think the most interesting part of that, though, is whether he lives or dies, is that he ends on, I really hoped I wouldn't die, which is a reversal from where he's been the rest of the film. So even if he does die, he's, once again, come to a place where he has the will to live.
Well, I feel like he could never leave Bruges. Even though he got on that train and they tried to get out of there, he still got dragged back to Bruges, So I think he's spending the rest of his life there, or whatever, the afterlife, if there is one. That's his punishment.
It is great. He gets arrested.
Yeah.
They're like,
What-
we're taking you back to Bruges. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, a bottle. And this is another thing. The bottle, they talked about getting, if someone attacks you with a bottle, you're gonna that's a deadly weapon, and so he punches the lady.
Oh my God.
Talk
Talk about stuff that's wrong. And then he says to his date, and Chloe, I would never hit a woman. Not one that wasn't trying to attack me. Someone comes at you with a bottle. That's self-defense. I would never normally hit a woman.
Yeah. A bottle, boom! And he's so quick. He stole the gun from that Eric guy too, with the blanks and stuff. Those blanks, and he knew what to do with that. But he was so quick to like hit people, and you wouldn't expect it. He really, really like played that out well. Just all of a sudden, boom! He's a bottle? No, you're gonna play it like that. I forget exactly what he said, but it was just hysterical.
You guys might have lost me for a second. I think my connection went out.
You there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? So you haven't even talked about Carter Burwell. Is that the composer's name?
Yeah, the composer. I really think it's a brilliant score. And you were saying earlier that it's repetitive. It is. There's a theme that recurs throughout. But I really. But again, I think it gives it the film a lot of soul, and I do also like when the score gets threatening as Ralph Fiennes enters the picture. They have those shots of him.
Boom. Danger.
Yeah, I think the score is probably. It probably does a lot of that job of what I was saying earlier about giving this film a lot of soul, more than you might expect, because especially in those scenes where you have Ray and Ken, having those heart-to-heart moments, and the score gets really emotional, and which you might not expect from a movie that's about hitmen. It's just very unique. And Carter Burwell, I think, I won't say he's underrated, because a lot of people know who he is, and he's a very prolific composer. He gets a lot of work, but his scores are kind of often more low key than I think some other composers.
I was surprised that this was him, actually, because I was like, oh wait, certain times I can hear it, and then other times it's a lot more pronounced than he normally is, like.
Yeah.
Go ahead, keep going. I know you have a lot to say about it.
Yeah. I don't know how much I have to say about it. I just it's probably because a lot of the story is recurring motif, so there's not a lot of variety in the score, but go ahead.
One of the most touching moments, I felt like it wasn't his score. It was when they were up on the belfry. Ray was up. He climbs back up, and he goes up. He's trying to save, and it's an Irish song, and I can't something road or something. It's called anyway. And it's just so heartbreaking just to see, he's the last thing you see is, his wife was killed, murdered. And they talk about that. And, it's a sad song about losing somebody and leaves falling. And he's about to jump off of this tower to warn Ray because there's fog. He can't shoot down there. So he's like, what the hell can I do? I'm going to just throw myself over the side here to warn him that Harry's coming or whatever. I assume that, and they zoom in on his wedding ring, and it's just because he thinks he's going to see his wife. Like, even after all the bad things he has done, he still thinks, okay, I'm going into the afterlife to see my wife. And I just thought that was probably the most emotional scene, with the music wise, and it wasn't necessarily his score, but still he probably chose the song, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's called On Raglan Road. That's
Ooh, are you there? Well, we lost John. Hello. Can anybody else hear me? I don't know. I better look in on the chat. Am I still here? Are you there?
Yeah.
Who
Sorry.
I don't know. I'm like asking the chat. No one's answering me. I don't even know. I was just like, what?
Yeah, I apologize, guys. I seem to be having some connection problems. If we continue to have issues, we might have to cut this short. But we'll go and hope for the best.
What were you saying now? I can't even.
Yeah, the song is called On Raglan Road, and it's a beautiful moment. I love the way that's all cut together, where you have him climbing back up, and it cuts to Harry, going down the stairs, and it just builds to this crescendo, and it's beautiful. I mean, you guys know how much I love editing, and I think it's a brilliantly edited sequence. And
the cinematography is fantastic as well, in this movie, which is, I'm a very visual person, and I think that they nailed that as well, even though it's not in your face so much, because the place is so beautiful, but just the framing of like that shot, like that scene you showed with the gun scene, like just the way it's framed sometimes, it's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just thinking about how sad that is, just when he gets up the top, and yeah, his plan is kind of foiled because, as you said, there's fog everywhere. So the only thing he can really do is just throw himself over in the hope of causing a distraction, maybe getting Ray his gun. But of course, his gun is broken,
Mm-hmm.
And then even so, Colin Farrell has to try and run back to the hotel and get his gun. And
he almost had like a Scarface moment. How many times he was shot? I was like, when is this guy going to go down? Like he took some major hits, and he kept on going, but he was also sweet to the innkeeper. Like, he had his sentimental moments, and he was mostly kind to women. He was a romantic, Ray, and even with Chloe, and he's funny because when she tried to scam him at first, and it went wrong, and he was like, I knew it. I knew you couldn't. Who's inner monologue when there's like guns going on, and people, the guy's screaming, I'm blind on the floor, and he's just asking her. He's thinking about, I knew you couldn't really like me. That was his train of thought at that point in time. And there's a lot of moments like that in this movie that, like their inner monologue is just so messed up and so different. They're so weird,
And it's like, even after he's found out that she, sets up tourists to rob them, but she's like, no, please stay and call me. And then eventually he smiles at her like, okay, this can still work out.
Yeah. He was so happy at that moment. And that was a little bit of his, a little bit of happiness before the end, I guess, so he did find something in Bruges that he liked, Yeah. Oh man, but what a film, man! It just takes you on a ride. You don't know what you're in for until you're just in it. And I hate, sometimes I hate that movies sometimes have to be categorized into drama or comedy. I think you can do a little bit of both or a little bit of everything, and this definitely does that, you know.
Yeah. Because as we've said, it's undoubtedly hilarious, but there's, I think, moments that are heavier than most straight dramas that I've seen.
Yeah, it's just exploring morality all the way through, you know. It's what the film's about, and purgatory, you know, the same difference, you know. So that theme is just, again, like repetitive, all the way repeated through, but it never gets old, you know, because it's just, you just go back and forth on what you're thinking about a person, you know, what they're saying. Because somehow, I mean, even though they say all these terrible things, somehow you're just still drawn into these characters and you still like them somehow, you know, like it's not someone that you would ever hang out with in real life, but watching a movie, you could be like, okay, you see his good points. You see their good points, you know. The code of ethic that they have is just ridiculous.
Okay, so we've been talking for about an hour. I just want to take the time right now to go ahead and do the mid-roll or the or depending on how long we go, almost over roll, as we'll call it.
I don't know how much longer. My kid is, I hear him yelling, but we can do a little bit more.
Okay. So everybody, next week, I'll actually be back next week, and we're going to be doing a stream with Carole Brown. We're going to be talking about the original 1979 Alien. So I'm looking forward to that. One of my favorites, even though I'm typically not a horror movie guy, but that's science fiction horror. So it has an end for me. But I'm quite a big fan. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, so you said you and Sanri don't have anything lined up yet for your next episode?
No, we have a few things that we've been talking about doing. We just have to pick one and do it, you know, find the time. She's a busy person. So it's, you know, she works on the computer a lot. So it's, you know, we don't try to we don't have a schedule is what I should say. We just, whatever we feel like we just do it. It's just for fun. We're not trying to, you know, break world records and people listening to listens and plays, you know? So, yeah, no, we'll do something again, but there's just no schedule, you know, hopefully within the next month, we'll have something else out.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I know that everybody will be waiting with bated breath because you guys are great. So,
you know, we're artists, so we get, you know, you got to be in the right mood or it doesn't work, you know, just moody artists, like, one of it, you know, so we got to be on the same page, and that's fine. We both, you know, understand each other like that. So that's what's cool about our friendship, you know.
Weezy, yep, that'll be the original Alien. You know, that's the one with. Well, I mean, all the films of that franchise have Sigourney Weaver, but yeah, that's the one we're talking about. But yeah, okay, yeah. So let's talk for just a little bit more. I know you'll have to go, but who would you say has your favorite performance in this film?
Oh, Colin Farrell, for sure.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad saying that because I think Brendan Gleeson is absolutely phenomenal. But as we've said, Colin kind of the way he opens himself up in this film. There's a reason why I said it, and this one really made me a fan of his because I think it showed another level.
Yeah, he became a character. He's a character actor. You know, yeah. He saw it for once, and Gleeson is. I mean, he's everything he's in. He nails, but he always kind of has that same, as from what I've seen, that same kind of demeanor. You know, so Colin kind of, for me, I mean, they were both amazing, but Colin for me just really killed it because. How deep, even though the character was not that deep and he was kind of a simpleton, it was really a deep performance and just stunning. You know, he had tears, he was crying and then and saying something messed up in the next line, you know, like just really fast, you know, going in between emotions. And and he was really good. And I mean, Ralph Fiennes, I always love. I mean, the Grand Budapest Hotel. It's one of my favorite films too, so I always love to see him. But the three of them are great.
Yeah, I don't want to sort of undersell how absolutely phenomenal Ralph Fiennes is. I mean, because in a way, you would sort of expect, him to be doing something like this, but he still manages to bring something else to it. And he's as brutal as he is, he's absolutely hilarious. What's great about him is that for the majority of the film, we just get his voice as he's talking to Ken on the phone, or we hear his voice, when Ken is reading the message. And then the first time we see him is after the phone call when Ken says, that he's let Ray go, and he hangs up the phone, and then we cut to Ralph Fiennes for the first time, and he's just got like this stone cold brutal look on his face, and then he launches himself.
We lost him again. Yeah, he launches himself. It becomes cobblestone pancake. Look at John's face where it's frozen. Isn't that great? He's got like his Joker smile. Oh, are you there? Ay.
Hey, all right, guys. I'm sorry. So we'll probably wrap this up soon since I'm still having issues, which will work out fine.
Yeah, it works out for me too. Yeah.
Since I know you have to go. But I was just saying about Ralph Fiennes, how it cuts to him, and then you have this absurd moment where he starts slamming the phone down over and over.
It's an inanimate object.
And then again, something that you probably wouldn't want to say in a modern movie where, he comes back that was saying, "You're an inanimate effing object."
Yeah. There's all these like characters. The movie is mainly the three of them, I guess, mostly. And then there's like, these flashes of, they showed like, well, he had like a nanny or an au pair or pair, however you say that. And, they show her for a second. There's like all these like weird, like the guy that sold the gun. What was his name? Yuri. And about the alcoves. He went on about the alcoves. Like, no, that's not the right word. Like all these like silly, just little in passing, quick little characters that like come through. So it's also amazing.
Nooks and crannies. Perhaps this is the right thing to say. And then later on in the film, when Ken and Harry are talking about it, he's like, was he going on about the alcoves?
Yeah, was he going on? Yeah. Again, with the repetition, like it's just, and in comedy, I love that when you can tie it, like put a little bow on it, like a joke, a running joke, and this film does it in spades. I mean, there's all throughout it. It becomes familiar, they make it kind of like, I think that's kind of how we get like eased into it, like because of it becomes familiar, all the things that they're saying over and over again, and it kind of sugarcoats all the non-PC things that are going on,
Yeah.
And the ugliest dog in the world. That dog is the ugliest dog in the world. When he's having like the worst day. The guy doesn't wave. The little person doesn't wave at him, and he looks over and there's the ugliest dog in the world sitting next to him. He's just like down on his luck.
And I think what's sort of really, what's so. It cuts really to the core in that moment, though, because I think obviously I can't say that I've ever been dwelling over having committed a murder, especially not the murder of a kid. But I think when you feel guilty about something, you do tend to feel like eyes are on you, and so I think that's kind of that moment of you have this dog with, maybe an ugly dog, but very good. Sort of you can see
judging him. It's judging him.
The eyes are like judging him, and and I think that he
And that's
feels
the
that.
theme.
Yeah, and then a couple moments later, he sees, the two kids with,
That was the third thing. Again, everything's like in threes. I feel like I want to go back and like look at each thing and see if it's in threes, because a Bosch's triptych is 3 pieces. Like that's really deep, and that's some tinfoil for this movie that you never knew there could be tinfoil in. But I want to go back and see if there's everything that is repeated in threes. Like there's 3 things that went wrong from there. That the little person didn't wave, the dog was judging him, and then he looks at the kids. It's kind of like there's these beats, I guess you would say, that just really move the plot along and the movie along, and it just ties it all together and just makes it just art. I will call it art.
Yeah, just an absolutely beautiful film, and sorry, go ahead.
I was thinking about that, like when he first meets Chloe, and do you speak English? She says no, and he gets coy, and he says, yeah, you do, and then she like says something, uses all these like big words, and is very poetic in what she says, and it's English, it's perfect English, and he doesn't understand it at all. And it might as well have been Swahili, but he goes, oh, you know English really well, because she speaks it better than he does, which is, I find that a lot, like, especially like I have some friends in Holland, and they speak better. Their English is impeccable. It's crazy. That's he says something in passing, like, I love Europe. You don't have to learn their languages.
Which is such a I would say, if not for the fact that obviously he's not American, but that does sound like such an American
Excuse
thing
me,
to say.
yes, English. I should say English speaking. Yeah, I meant that. Yeah, I meant to. Of course, I'm thinking as as an American, everyone's American. No, but it's just English speaking people.
But yeah, it does kind of sum up his character, and who's, again, it's like you shouldn't necessarily, he's not the most sympathetic of people, just in terms of his opinions and what we conceive as values and stuff, but you do feel for him nonetheless. I think just because he's in so much pain.
Yeah, somehow, and that's the genius of the movie, that you can, somehow it worked out, and they're lucky that it did, because it either would have worked or it would have been really bad, and they pulled it off. They definitely pulled it off.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, seeing as how I know you do have to go, and since I'm having connection issues, we'll probably just wrap this up. But was there anything more that you wanted to comment on about the film?
I think I said everything. I just that, the underlying things, the morality, and this is Bruges was purgatory for Ray, and it might even be his hell now. Who knows? But yeah, no, I think we covered everything. I mean, it's not a long film. It's not, and because it's so repetitive, there's really not too much to talk about, because the same things go on and on and on. So we're being repetitive just by talking about it. But it is definitely worth a watch if anyone hasn't. You just it's art. Just think of it as art. You're going in. Don't take offense. You just gotta let it play out, and watch it. It's definitely worth a watch for sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of its humor is kind of
black humor. Yeah,
born out of maybe you shouldn't be laughing as hard at some of the stuff as you are, but nonetheless, it's hysterical. But I also think that even if you do take issue with some of the stuff, the underlying story and emotion of the characters is such that I that I think you still have that, and so the movie will still have a pull for you, even if you, as I said, you do take issue with some of the humor, which maybe is not as palatable today as it might have been about 10 years ago. So.
Yeah. Your comedy has definitely changed completely. I mean, I had belly laughs the first time I watched it. I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe that he's saying these things, you know? And now it's not so PC to laugh at such stuff, but you just kind of got to see that this is who he is. And this is how he was raised. And he's not a good person, obviously. And that's just the way it is. You know what I mean? That he's just being himself. And we know that there are people like that in real life nowadays. So still, that's what's crazy about it. Like back then, you know, was Obama in office? Yeah. No.
No, he was on the verge of coming in. The election hadn't happened yet when this film came out because it was released earlier in the year. So we were still at the tail end of the Bush administration.
Yeah. So it's, you know, things have changed even since then, you know, like we thought, I don't want to get too political, but we thought it was a different place. I thought I lived in a different place than we do that we see right now, you know? So it's kind of like, oh, it's so outlandish that he's saying these things. But today you look at it and you're like, people are still saying these things. You know what I mean? So that's why it's kind of shocking to see it today. But back then, it just seems so outlandish, you know? We were all in dreamland. Anyway, but that's about, you know, it is what it is. It's art. You gotta, you know, you have to be objective about it, you know, and that's just give it a shot, you know?
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, you know, even beyond the humor, I think that the film has a lot of heart and soul, and so if you haven't seen it, I think you'll really respond to it, and it's still my favorite movie of 2008, so I heartily recommend it, and I hope those of you who haven't seen it will, and that you enjoy it.
For sure.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and wrap up before I cut out again.
All right, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. I know today was a little shorter, but you know what? Maybe I'll make up for it next week by going like.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe I'll go for like 3 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Don't tell Carole.
Carole's gonna be like, oh yeah, no, I am like, yeah, I can't. 2 hours is a lot for me. Like I'm like 2 hour a minute. But even today, I just like John, you know, messaged me this morning and I totally forgot we were going to do this because we had to postpone it. So I'm just like, all right. Well, so I'm kind of rushed today anyway, too. So I know you like to go long, but me, I like to kind of keep it at an hour. That's like me and Santa are like, we're just doing an hour. My attention span just isn't.
Yeah, that's fine. And it was great. I love getting to talk about this with you. And thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was great. Yeah. No, thank you for finally having me on. And hopefully we'll find something else to talk about in the future.
Absolutely. Although we don't necessarily see eye to eye on everything. So maybe the next one we'll be having a heated
debate. Yeah, I know.
Debate.
That might be a good idea. Yeah, we'll have to pick something that one of us likes and one of us doesn't, which probably will be you liking something and me not liking something. So.
Oh, how well you know me.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. And hope you guys all have a wonderful day. And come back next week, Thursday at 2:00, and we'll talk some Alien.
All right. Stay safe, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.